store, they're just behind there. I can't see them. The racks are too high and they're gone. So I just do in the store. Everyone looks at me, but my wife and daughter will raise their hand on over there. I get lost a lot. Okay, so welcome back. How are the vendors? Yay. Did you learn everything you needed to know? Okay, I will tell you there are some overachievers in the crowd, and they've already finished their bingo cards. So we're going to go ahead and give away 3 more prizes to the overachievers. Okay, Dolores Gonzalez. Yay! What has Dolores won? Come on.
A spa set.
A spa set. Okay. Next on The Price is Right is Letitia Rangel. Letitia Rangel, back in the corner. From Home to Home for Seniors, another care package, it looks like. Yeah, care package with a travel bag. Okay. And last but not least of the overachievers is Maria Flores. Maria Flores. Maria Flores. Must be present to win. Maria Flores. All right, we'll give it. Maybe she's still in store. We'll hold it for now. Here we go, Maria Flores. We'll try again after lunch. Okay? All right. Well, with that, I want to welcome our next speakers, which is a panel, legal and caregiving panel. We have Carol Birch, who is the only certified no law attorney in Texas. I'm sorry, in San Antonio, I'm sorry. She's the best in Texas, but she's the only one in San Antonio.
That's right.
Anybody that knows her would agree, is that right? Yes. She has her law degree from UT Austin. She describes, I don't even know if you describe yourself as an old soul, but people describe you as an old soul. People have said that you're an old soul. And then we have Linda Sandula, who is a long, and I'm sure I butchered your last name, right? I did, yes.
That's okay, but
Okay.
it's Italian. Just remember.
It's Italian. Okay, no, I took French. And so, Alzheimer's, a long-time Alzheimer's advocate. I worked in human resources for a long time, even right here from the UT system. And then we have Rudy Gomez, also an old faculty from, an ex-faculty, not old, ex-faculty from UTHSCSA School of Nursing, caregiver and retired Associate Dean of Finance and Administration for the School of Nursing. So I'm going to hand it off to you guys to talk about everything.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to try to keep it loud. We've got some questions for our caregivers, and just to let you know that they've been on the caregiving journey all the way through, and I'll let y'all tell more about that. But tell me, what's the biggest issue caregivers face day to day, Linda?
Day to day, I would say depression. Depression. Caregiver stress is real, and oftentimes the way we see it is through depression. We don't know that we're depressed because we're so busy doing caregiving. One of the things that seems to be a paradox is that in order for you to be an effective, good caregiver, what you have to do first, I'm going to say this again, what you have to do first is take care of yourself. And when you're so busy caregiving, you cannot figure out how to find time to take care of yourself. I was a caregiver from 2009 to 2016. So when I came on this, when I began my journey, I was so involved in trying to take care of my husband, trying to work, trying to figure out what to do in terms of caregiving. I got lost in the shuffle. And what I learned through support groups is a real simple philosophy. You put me first as a caregiver. And when you put me first, you're able to maintain your health, your well-being, which makes you a better caregiver. And the reason I say better is because Caregiving 101 is not a course that we take any place. We learn caregiving OJT on the job. So I would say we make mistakes. That's part of OJT. And when you make mistakes, learn to forgive yourself and make yourself a promise. This is really important. I want you to hear what I'm about to say. Make yourself a promise that goes like this. I will try to not make the same mistake again. Because we're only human, we're not perfect, and we will do it again. Forgive yourself and keep going. That's the only way you can be effective, an effective caregiver. Forgive yourself, let the stress go, and also with the depression, two things. Do not self-medicate. Don't take that Valium that you've had for whatever issue. Don't take that glass of wine at night, because what happens real quickly is that glass of wine becomes the bottle of wine. Because you just, oh God, I just need to relax. And talk to your doctor about depression, because they can help you with depression. Seriously. Depression is a serious malady of caregiving.
Thank you, Linda.
Linda, did you sign up for this job? Did you get training to be a caregiver?
I never wanted to be a caregiver. I never wanted to be a caregiver. I don't think anybody wants to be a caregiver. It happens. And how you approach caregiving is whether or not you will be successful. If you look at it like, I was a caregiver for my husband. So, you know, good, bad, ugly, it's part of marriage. And I took care of my husband. And some days it was very difficult because I would never forget the day he forgot who I was. It was an emotional pain that you cannot begin to describe. And in that moment, you have to make a decision. He no longer knows who I am. Does that mean I walk away? No. It means that I'm still here. However, he recognizes me, I'm still here, and I will be here for the duration.
And let me just add to that, y'all, we will take questions after 45 minutes. So the last 15 minutes will be questions. But Rudy, I wanted to go to you. You've told me about the values underlying care delivered with compassion and patience. Can you tell the audience a little bit about this?
Yes, of course. You know, my wife passed away last May, and I really wanted to share a tool that a caregiving, there it is, a caregiver advisory council came up with, and I was fortunate enough to be part of it, and this helped me deliver good quality care to my wife. And it's a simple little pie chart, and I'll just go through it very quickly, but it involves, you know, we want to give good care to our loved ones in terms of keeping them safe. It's like a little pie chart, as you can see there. Keeping them safe, so safety, hygiene, comfort, independence, and dignity. And we want to do all of this. If we can have the next slide, please. We want to, these are values that underlie our care, but we have to do each of these things with compassion and patience. And I think patience probably is the number one struggle that I had. I was feeling all sorts of, you know, anxiety, stress, psychologically, mentally, financially, because it's not, it takes its toll, doesn't it, on us. So, as Linda said, we've got to take care of ourselves. And when I put this little chart, this little pie chart up in my home, in a little place that I kept it. And I had to constantly remind myself how to give my wife good, safe care. For instance, I'm just going to go very, very briefly some examples of each of these. I'm going to go from the safety and then go right. So how do we keep your loved one safe? You know, some of this has already been mentioned earlier. Home modifications, reduce the clutter, bathroom, bars and rails, and I'm sure you know all of these things. Thresholds, special locks, remove throw rugs, and avoid trip hazards. And these are just a few things, and I invite each of you to think of, if you were to also use this, and you could just draw it out on your notes, and then come up with your own little tips on how to keep your loved one safe. And then we do the same thing with hygiene. We want to keep them clean, brush their teeth. My wife enjoyed having her makeup done every day, and she told me that early on. And so I knew nothing about makeup, right? as a guy. But I really made the point of early on, our getting help on how to, put on her makeup, her whatever it was. I don't even know what all that is called. I ended up simplifying it because there were so many. She had like tons of stuff. I had no idea what any of it was.
We still do.
Anyway, I simplified it. I think I had 3 items, and I put that on her every day, and she was so happy. And brushed her hair, and she enjoyed that so much. So, and then comfort. How do we keep our loved ones comfort? Comfort means proper surroundings, proper temperature in the home. My wife was always either cold or hot. So be conscious of those things. Her clothing, maybe it was too tight or something. TV shows, she only liked certain ones, and even though she might not have been able to express to me verbally after a while, I could tell when she didn't like that. Turn it. Music, the correct type of music to keep them comfortable. My wife was she loved music and dancing, and we met in a dance class, by the way, a couple of dance classes. So we danced through life with all of its hills and its valleys, and continued to do so even when she couldn't walk anymore. Just playing her music and rocking back and forth and that type of thing. So again, you'll find ways that perhaps you can find comfort to your loved one. Independence, we want our loved one to be as independent as possible for as long as possible. And they can no longer do the laundry on their own, make the bed on their own, cook meals, set the table. So I always try to say, well, let's help Barbara. Let me help you make the bed. I would really make it right. When she was up and around, I always allowed her to be in the activity, even though she really couldn't do many of these things, but she was up and around, and it put a smile on her face when we finished that little task. And of course, we want to do that with dignity, preserve one's dignity. I would praise her, maintain her privacy, be respectful, and give her choices. Like, for instance, when I was having to dress her, at first I would take her to the closet and say, "What do you want to wear?" Well, that lasted, that was like, after a while, she really couldn't choose, and it was overwhelming. So eventually I said, "Okay, how about this or this?" 2 different out. And so she's that one. Okay, good. Simplify the choices. So those are just some of the things that I found that this little chart, this tool, can perhaps perhaps guide you through the day. And always remember that we want to provide all of these value, these care tasks with compassion and patience, if you can, as long as you can. And if you can no longer do that, you need a break, as Linda said. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, Rudy. And that's a good segue into the next question, which is, how can you be an effective caregiver? Linda?
I'm going to say this again, take care of yourself first. Learn to be patient, and I do volunteer work with Alzheimer's Association with support groups, and I hear people say, I'm not a patient person. Patience is learned behavior. It's about taking a breath and then moving on. I would also suggest listening to your care recipient, going to where they are, talking to them about what they want to talk about. And this is, it's so simple. Well, all we have to do is keep it simple in the conversation. It doesn't need to be complex. We need to speak in simple terms, and people go, I don't understand what you're saying. It's like this. Don't tell your loved one, clear the table, stack the dishes up, put them in the dishwasher. They got lost after cleared the table. So the conversation should be something like, could you clear the table for me now? And after the table is clear, ask them to do something else. You know, Rita talked about helping them maintain their dignity. We call it validation of the individual as a human being, letting them know that they have worth and appreciating the worth that they have. So, also, join a support group. You need to have some interaction with people who are going through the same thing that you're going through. In a sense where you don't have to explain what you're going through. When you go into an Alzheimer's support group, everybody knows that your loved one has Alzheimer's disease. So you don't have to apologize, you don't have to explain. And people say, well, I went to a support group and it wasn't the right one. There is a support group out there that will meet your needs. Sometimes you have to go to 2 or 3, but I cannot stress the importance of support groups and letting off steam, because sometimes when we go to support groups, we get a bad day, and we need to explain to somebody who understands, I've had a bad day, so listen to me. And it's an unapologetic environment where people really get what's happening to you, and they can support you. And I belong to a support group. It's what I call my support group that I joined. What was that year? 2010 or something. And we still meet. And Jerry, my friend, one day said, you know who we are? We are siblings of other mothers. And we continue to meet to this day. And most of us have lost our care recipients, but we love one another. We met under some very trying circumstances, and those trying circumstances have bonded and made us better people. So.
And Rudy, how do you be an effective caregiver?
Well, I believe that at first I thought I could do it alone. Boy, was I wrong. But I sort of had to learn the hard way to become an effective caregiver. It didn't come naturally for me, but at that point I realized I better be a quick study, I better learn quickly. So I began putting together a care team, what I call a care team. And it was a combination of perhaps a family member, a neighbor, a good friend, hired out, went and sought out an agency to find a giver to come in for 4 hours a day, once or twice a week, just to give me a break. So the bottom line is that I found that in order for me to be effective, I needed that to take care of myself. we keep reinforcing that because it's true. You don't want to be a statistic. And by that I mean, you'll die before your caregiver, before your loved one. Number two, you might get so depressed that you will walk away. I didn't sign up for this, I'm out of here, and abandon your loved one. Or number three, suicide. And I say that because these are the statistics. And taking care of yourself is the key not to be a statistic.
I'd like to add something else to that in terms of caregiving. Women and men approach caregiving differently. Women tend to seek help first. Men are slow about getting help. They think they can do it alone. And I think women tend to be more social beings. So women, it's just like going to the beauty parlor, a regular beauty parlor customer. You see the same people every day. My husband screwed up this morning, my daughter did this, so we are used to sharing, and men are not. So I would strongly encourage any male in here who is a caregiver to seek support, join a support group, talk to people, and I can't stress enough how unforgiving that support group is. They get you, they understand, and they will not penalize you for anything that you think you did wrong. And forgive. Thank you for correcting me, Jerry. Thank you.
So what was or let me ask this, how did you realize you couldn't continue caring for your loved one at home?
If I may, let me share my story. I was at a point where Barbara was very agitated, very aggressive behavior. I was getting so frustrated that even my wife's neurologist gave up and said, "I'm sorry, there's nothing more we can do. Take her off all meds because what she was on only slowed down the progression of the disease, but and there was nothing more they could do." Well, I immediately fired that neurologist and got another neurologist, and our new neurologist said, "We have many tools in our toolbox, many meds in our med chest. I didn't say this, but she was wandering, we weren't sleeping, wandering at night, getting out of the house." So at that point, and I'll try to make this as brief as possible, with the new meds, it took 3 months to change those behaviors with the proper medications, but I could only do it 1 month. And so the last 2 months of this behavior modification, I don't know what else to call it, but really believing that these drugs would really make this difference, I believed it. So I needed help with a care facility, and so I had to really be my wife's advocate and talk with them about what we were really trying to do. I didn't really want her in this facility forever because I committed I was going to care for her, but I couldn't do it at that point. Again, it took 2 months, 2 additional months, 1 month at home, which was hell, and that was it. But after that time, I was very fortunate that she was sleeping at night, was not wandering, and she began getting happy again. It was amazing. It was a miracle. I just call it a miracle, but that's what did it for me. It was tough. It was harder on me than it was, I think, on Barbara, looking back on it, because I was still stressed out, and that was just me. It's not what my story is, just my story. Everyone is different. So, but thank you for asking.
Mine's a unique kind of situation. My husband was a research scientist, so when he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, he did the research.
And I was in Austria, my head was in the sand, not going there, I didn't sign up for this. And he told me, after he finished the research, he told me 3 things. He told me not to go broke trying to take care of him. And he told me to not give any of his money to his children after he died. And he told me that when the time came, he expected me to put him in a facility because he did not want me to kill myself trying to take care of him. And African Americans and Hispanics, this is a culture issue, and we take care of our loved ones to the end. So he and I had a big fight about that. You expect me to put you in some type of facility? Hell would freeze over before I ever did that. I was participating in support groups, and that question was always asked, when do you know it's time? And the response was always the same, you'll know. It's a very unique type of situation, you'll know. As the disease progresses, sleep patterns change. And my husband would wake up every morning at 2 o'clock. On a good day, he would go to bed around 6. On a bad day, he was up all day. And on a bad week, he was sleeping maybe 4 hours. He was a client at Grace Place. We were having a bad week. He was not sleeping. I could not wait to get him to Grace Place so that I could go home and take a nap. I drove to Grace Place, tried to drive home, and almost fell asleep. And at that point, I knew that I could no longer do 24/7 care. And that's when I placed him outside the home. And I want to talk about placement outside of the home. And this is what you need to understand. When you decide to make placement outside of the home, you are looking for a new home for your loved one. It takes lots of effort to find the right home. And this is really important because sometimes we have medical crises with our loved ones and they are hospitalized and the attending physician comes in and tells you this: you cannot take your husband home. You cannot take your mother home. So I'm going to discharge you to rehab so that you can find a place for your loved one. I have 2 things to say about that. If they say 7 days, say no. Say, I want 21 days, okay? Because you are looking for a home, and you cannot find a home in 7 days. You need to be diligent because when you find a bed, I can assure you that in a very short period of time, you're looking for another bed. Because that first bed situation is not working out. But when you realize that you are looking for a home, the parameters for what you need change. My husband grew up on a farm. I did my homework. And I actually placed him in a private home situation that was a mini farm. I'm a city girl, never wanted to be a farm girl, but he would work the farm, and every Friday he would pick the eggs from the chicken coop and he would present them to me. And I told a friend of mine that, yeah, Henry picked these eggs for me, and she goes, you do not pick eggs. Well, what do you do with eggs? She said, you gather the eggs. So every Friday, he gathered the eggs and he gave me a basket of eggs. So what I'm saying is, based on his history, his childhood, he immediately adopted to being on a farm, and he loved it. This was a mini farm, and they had everything except cows. I was shocked. But I found him a home. And once I found him a home, he was happy. He never complained to come back home. And he worked the farm for as long as he was physically able to. And what does that mean? We were all happy. We were all happy.
Thank you. You know, what's the biggest lesson you've learned on your journey?
I'm stronger than I ever thought I was. I could do things that I never thought I could do. I learned to love my husband through the 3 transitions that he went through when he didn't know my name, which was just really hard. And then one day, after not knowing who I was, he looked at me and he smiled and he said, I know who you are. Okay, where is this going? And he looked at me and he said, you are that nice lady who takes care of me. I could take that. I could take that. Because he knew I was somebody who was taking care of him, who recognized him as a person. The 3rd transition, which was absolutely the hardest one, was when I was visiting him one day. I stepped in the doorway, and what I saw in his face was fear, like he could never imagine. It's like, who is this person coming into my room? And I looked at him and I smiled and I said, hi, my name is Linda. I came to visit. And what I'm saying is, when you are the caregiver, you are the person who has to make the biggest changes to create the comfort for your loved one. It hurts you emotionally, but you have to make a choice. Is this about me, or is this about the person that I love and care for? I decided it was about him. And we could do a whole lot of things. And I promised him, your kids are not going to get your money. Your kids are not going to get your money. This is important, because the day he died, the hospice people said, talk to him, he can still hear you. And this is what I told him the whole day. I promised you I would never ever visit a resale store. I am never ever going to a resale store. I am going to spend all of your money on myself, and your kids are not going to get any money. Right? I'm telling this because a few days after he died, one of my kids, who was present when he died, he stood in the doorway of our bedroom and he said, Mom, can I talk to you for a minute? I said, yeah. And he goes, do you remember the day Dad died? Oh, like I'm gonna forget the day Dad died. I said, well, yeah. He said, you told Dad that you would never ever go to a resale store. You were gonna spend all of his money on yourself, and we weren't gonna get it. Mom, are you going to spend all that money on yourself? I said, are you crazy? I don't have a job. I'm never going to work again. And he says, well, why would you tell that to them? I said, to make him happy. He knew I was lying, but it made him happy.
How about you, Ruby?
Well, my situation was a little different. As I mentioned earlier, I wanted to take care of Barbara at home, which I did until the end of life. But the biggest lesson I learned, and I tell others this, is do not hesitate calling in hospice early on. As early, you have to be ready. My wife was qualified for hospice a year before she passed away. But by that time, I had injured my hip, injured my knee, my shoulder, just lifting and carrying her, just getting her on and off. Is this still on? Yes. Okay. Getting her on and off, in and out of bed, on and off the toilet, in a wheelchair. I needed all kinds of equipment. I waited way too long. Finally, I decided to call in hospice. One day to the next, I had every single piece of equipment that we needed in the home. And we had aides coming in to help with hygiene, giving her a bath and showering or whatever she needed. There are pros and cons about that, but to make a long story short, call hospice much sooner.
And never forget, caregiving takes a village, and you have to define who your village is.
Tell me, how do you continue living your life while you were a caregiver and then after your care recipient died?
But I'm going to say this again. I went to support groups, active participant in support groups. And one of the things that happened in my support group is that they stress self-care and doing things that made you happy, and also stress the fact that there is more to life than caregiving. And sometimes when we're in caregiving, we can't see anything but the caregiving. And once I realized that I could be somebody else as a caregiver, I started living a new life. It was no longer, the primary focus of my life was no longer taking care of Henry. It was taking care of Henry and doing things for Linda. And what I realized is that in doing things for Linda, it made me a better caregiver, a happier caregiver. So our life as a couple improved when I learned how to take care of me. And after Henry died, I think this is important. As caregivers, we grieve with each change of decline. It's called anticipatory grief. So when death occurs, it's almost like it's a relief because the person that you love has died a slow death over this journey of Alzheimer's disease. So you're in a different position in terms of grief, but you have to figure out who you are first, and then you have to figure out who you want to be after your loved one passes. And what I did not want to be identified as was Henry's widow, because there was more to my life after he died. I was a mother, I was a grandmother, I was a mother-in-law, I was a sister, I was a whole bunch of other things. And those were the things that I wanted to be, by definition.
How about you, Rudy?
Well, I felt that the way I could keep my own identity was just simply getting breaks. I considered getting a break to cut the lawn therapy. I considered getting a break to tinker with projects and fixing stuff at the house or my cars. I'm a tinkerer by nature. Therapy for me, and or just going to the store. The breaks that I would take, I would just be able to get a haircut, maybe have lunch with a good friend. I didn't go to any therapy groups, unfortunately, Linda. I did that after.
He's a man. That's why I did that. And this is a good example. This is a good example of what I did as a caregiver for my husband, and what he did as a male caregiver for his wife. And what he's saying is he did it all. You can't do it all.
Now she tells me.
Now she tells me. Yeah. Where were you, Linda?
We worked together at Health Sciences
Yes.
for many years. So.
Yes, we did. We were partners in crime, or something partners.
Crime.
No. But I felt that it was that worked for me. It's good. I think whatever works for you, you can have to find whatever works for you. What recharges your batteries? It's going to be different, probably for everyone in this room. So,
The emphasis is on recharging your battery.
Okay, I think we're ready to take some questions.
Okay, so we're gonna open it up for questions, so just raise your hand and I'm coming right over to you.
Linda, how old were you when your husband passed?
Oh, maybe I said, well,
I just want to know how much more life, like, I'm old, and neither one of us, we've passed our expiration dates. You know, it's supposed to be 70-something, and we're way past that now, and there's not much life left. But did you have a lot of life left after you passed?
I was 67 when my husband died. I had a lot of life left then, and I have a lot of life left now.
This goes for both Linda and Rudy. How long was the progression time for both of your spouses? Like it started, you were 3 years into it, and then it was like 15 years later. What was the time frame? Was there any?
My husband was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease in his early 60s. What our neurologist told us is very frightening. When he made the diagnosis, he said he had probably had the disease for a good 10 to 15 years.
Wow.
And what we know now is that whatever triggers Alzheimer's disease triggers early before one becomes symptomatic. So with the diagnosis of early onset, he was given a life expectancy of 7 to 10 years. He actually lived 6 years.
Wow, okay. And Rudy?
And my wife was diagnosed when she was 66, and that was in 2016. And at that point, the family had already begun to see some signs. But we were all in denial, and we finally did get Barbara to a neurologist and got it formally diagnosed as Alzheimer's. And our journey was 7 years from that 2016 to 2023. And it was quite a journey, if you can imagine. We went through all of the stages. You know, at first it wasn't so bad. It wasn't, okay. It was more like, oh my God, but then we learned to deal with it, and it was the last, I think, couple of years, it was the toughest,
And when you, so I take care of my grandfather, that's here with me. He goes everywhere with me because I'm his caregiver. I'm all he has. So, well, not all he has, everybody's out of state, and I'm not doing, this is all new to me. I've been in the medical industry for 38 years and stopped working to take care of him because I was actually in denial for 3 or 4 years. I knew something was happening, but because he lived downstairs and I lived upstairs, I didn't want to face it because it just, no, that's not pops. So, we just got the diagnosis this February. However, it's been onset like probably 3 to 4 years, they said, which it's all new to me now. So I'm glad that I'm here because y'all have helped me so much to know that, yes, one of the things I didn't do and haven't been doing is taking care of myself. It's all about pops, and I've kind of like put blinders. So I'm glad that we came. And I just love it. I love my grandpa so much.
I want to make a comment here about life expectancy. Alzheimer's disease is a very individualized disease. People have lived with Alzheimer's disease for 30 years, okay? So it's just a number, and how long a person lives depends upon individualized circumstances, okay? You know, this is what we know. The progression of early onset Alzheimer's disease is a lot quicker than age-related. Don't know why, it just progresses a lot quicker. And I would not get caught up in how long a person's going to live, because there's no magic number. There's somebody in here who is taking care of someone who has Alzheimer's disease for 10 or plus years. Haven't identified it, but there's somebody here who's doing that. So don't get caught up in those numbers, all right?
All right, we have another one over here.
Hi. Thank you very much for just answering these questions and listening to their testimonies, because it's helped me a lot. I'm from Houston, and my sister and I take care of my mom. My mom lives in Houston with me, and my sister lives here in San Antonio, and we're making it work. Here of late, we got a neurologist for her, and we got 2 different diagnoses from the neurologist. First, he said that she's brain cells were being destroyed by a condition she had previously, and then we noticed that she was changing, and we pinned him down again, and he said it's dementia. He didn't tell us what stage or anything. So now we're at the point where we're finding a different neurologist for her, because she's not on any type of pharmacology right now, other than something to help her go to sleep. So my sister and I are looking, we're gonna be, one of the options that we have is trying to find, you know, a place for her, if this is any worse. But my question, and I say all that to say this, when it comes to finding neurologists for a patient, did you have to go through 1 or 2? Because I've spoken to people here who said that some of the neurologists that they have, it's not their specialty, and they're just not as cooperative, or they're just not giving you that information. So my question is, what are some of the things that you would look for when you're looking for a neurologist to help you take care of your loved one?
This is gonna sound strange again, but when you belong to a support group, let me assure you, we talk about doctors. We talk about the good doctors, we talk about the bad doctors, we talk about the ones who listen to you, the ones who don't listen to you, and what I found in my support group was a list of doctors who were receptive to dealing with families and patients. And sometimes when you're out there looking hit or miss, you miss. But if you can talk to someone who's using somebody and is pleased with the persons that they're using, that's a good recommendation. And again, what support groups do is absolutely amazing. You walk in with your support group and you say, this is what happened to me this week. There's somebody in the support group who has had the same experience. And they can make some recommendations. It's just like, you know, I went to Dr. So-and-so today and he didn't listen to me, or she didn't listen to me. Somebody in that group will say, you don't know that's a bad doctor? And that's all you need to hear. And then when they say it's a bad doctor, they follow it up with, have you heard of Dr. So-and-so? And you need to do this and this. So I can't stress enough the importance of finding the right support group, because that right support group is a wealth of resources that you can't find anyplace else. I hope that was a helpful answer.
he hears what I'm saying, I want you to help me to take care of her, because her quality of life is important too.
So you stress, you picked up on something else. When you become a caregiver for someone who has dementia, you become an advocate for that individual. And if you are a shy and timid person, all I have to say is this: find your voice. And when you become an advocate, this is what I've learned. You will do things for the person that you are advocating for that you will not do for yourself. You will speak for that person. I'll give you a good example. You know, when we were going through this sleep problem with my husband, I called the neurologist on Friday because he could not go through the weekend without any sleep. And you also need to learn who to talk to in the doctor's office, and it's not the doctor. It is whoever that person is, his assistant, his nurse, find that person. And I called in the morning because I wanted her to call me back. And she called me back around lunchtime, and she told me that, no, the doctor said I needed to see a psychiatrist to subscribe some medication for sleep. Do you know how hard it is to find a psychiatrist? Impossible. So I told her, no, not working. So let me tell you what you're going to do. You're going to go back and you're going to talk to the doctor. You're going to get a prescription for some kind of sleep medication. I want you to call me back at 5 o'clock and tell me where to pick it up. And you know what she did? She called me back at 5 o'clock. She told me the prescription was available at Walgreens and that I had selected. And I picked it up. But you want to know what else I did? I called her back on Monday. And I apologized. I said I was under a lot of stress. He needed to sleep. I apologize for being overbearing, however you want to call it. But thank you very much for your help. Now, do you want to know why I called her back? Because I was going to be that bitch again. I'm serious. And when I called her back the next time, this is when I wanted her response to be, oh, that's that crazy Livingston doll, but she means well, let me call her back. As opposed to, that's the Livingston doll, I'll put her on the list last. You see the difference?
And donuts?
Yeah.
Oh.
We have a question online. How did you handle the aggressive state when they went through that?
Well, the aggressive state for Barbara tended to elevate itself when I was not around. When I was getting my therapy away, and I would come home and I would be told, oh, Barbara was pounding on the glass or pounding on the TV or doing this or calling her all kinds of names and different things. And so, okay. So I really didn't know what to do at first. But as I said, my original neurologist was really not providing any answers. And so, like I said, fired that neurologist, got a really good neurologist that I could speak with, who had a team of her own that I became very, very close with. And the medications that were prescribed, really, it was amazing. It was just amazing. Don't be afraid of these psychotropic drugs that are out there. A lot of people, I've talked to a lot of folks, they say, I don't want my loved one on drugs. It's not about drugging them up. It's not about putting them to sleep. It's about finding the right medication and the right dosage to control certain behaviors, including aggression, agitation, sleeping, not sleeping. That's what you do. That's how I did it.
Well, Ruby, how did you find the neurologist?
Well, my experience, I was out of, I worked here at the Health Science Center for 41 years. And when I retired 10, 11 years ago, I moved to New Braunfels. And so I wanted all my doctors in New Braunfels, and so we hired our first urologist in New Braunfels. And then it occurred to me, hello, we have the Institute, the Biggs Institute of Alzheimer's and neurodegenerative diseases right here in our very own backyard. And I'm sorry if you had some issues, that lady over there. When you said, I found a doctor here, I'm having trouble, that does not compute to me, because I'm telling you, this institute has the finest urologists and teams, and maybe I don't know what was going on, but if that is the case, talk to me afterwards and I will share some information with you. But anyway. We are. Oh.
I have a comment. A very good hospice saved us. Try to find a very good hospice. A hospice will outweigh any bad things you've heard about hospice. But I highly recommend hospice for my husband.
If you find the right hospice group.
You gotta find the right hospice group.
Listen to this, you can find your hospice group.
Yes.
And find a new one.
And the second one thing that saved me is a camera. My brother's children, my nieces and nephews, put in a camera in a room. And I think that is the second best thing, because right now I can see my mother eating lunch. And I know exactly what she's doing. And last night, her water was at the end of the bed. She was not next to the bed. So I called the facility and I said, you need to move her water so she can drink at night. But see, for years, I didn't know what she was doing unless I was there. So now, 24 hours, I can see what she's doing. And it only was the cost of the camera from Costco. There's no monthly fee or anything. So for like less than $50, you can see what your loved one's doing 24 hours. Now, don't ask me how to put the camera in because I don't know anything about electronics. But you get your grandchildren to put the camera in the room. And so you'll monitor what they're doing. And then I called the facility. I said, hey, my mother is in room 140. She needs water. Or she needs to be changed or whatever. But I can tell them, I can call them, and they're there because I watch on the camera. So a good hospice and a good camera. Thank you.
Amen. I just want to say I used the camera for the 2 months that Barbara was in memory care as well, and boy did that help. So please consider that. Even at home, actually. Yeah, put several cameras all around. You bet.
And my facility for my husband had cameras and hooked me up to their cameras. So I could monitor at home what was happening in his home.
Hi, my name's Lori, and my question is actually for Ruby. We have a situation where my mother-in-law, it's more declining dementia, which it can mimic some of the Alzheimer's. From your experience, maybe some words of wisdom, if you would have done it differently, because they refuse care. You know, they're doing it on their own. And when I mean doing it on, my sister-in-law who has mental health issues is taking care of her. So this is a train wreck. And they're in Colorado. So how can we continue to either encourage, discuss with my father-in-law the importance? We tried again this week and he just diverts to a different subject. So what really, from y'all's experience, or is it just going to be, like my husband said, it's going to have to be an accident? That basically the doctor says she can't go home. But if you have any words of wisdom that you would have clicked, something, an idea that we could share. I have my husband speak. I don't speak to them anymore because they told me to keep my 40 years of nursing out of their family. So, and that was from the sister. So, man to man, my husband speaking to his father, what can we do to say words of encouragement to help him understand that this needs to be taken care of?
great question. My first reaction to that is our families need to be, we need to communicate with them, and we need to educate them. And that may sound overwhelming, but I have found this really, really great 3-minute video that's on YouTube that if you just send them the link, it's 3 minutes. I mean, that's it. It's not like a dissertation on, 70 pages of things that people aren't going to read. That, I found that later in the progression of my wife's disease, but there were still at that point many family members that didn't understand what was going on. So I sent that to the family, and I'm sending that to any individual who seems to be struggling with that. And it's amazing that, oh, that's what that's about. No wonder grandma or mom has that behavior. They try to change her behavior, his behavior, and it's never going to change. It's not going to. It's only going to progress. And then keeping them, I actually was involved, not in a support group, but on a panel, and just sharing information. And I learned from Jerry, and I learned from others about the communication aspect. And what some people do is share with their families on like a continuing basis, and even Facebook, but it doesn't have to be Facebook. Just send them periodic updates on what's going on. That situation is kind of whoever is taking care, whoever is the caregiver was sharing. So it may be a little different in your situation, but
They're caregivers too.
yeah. Okay. Okay. Did you say you? I thought you were.
So we live over 1,000 miles away, and
Okay.
these are my husband's family. They do not use cell phones. They don't have my husband's family has no cell phones. They don't use a computer. Yeah, no Facebook. I mean, it's very. I mean, they're low income. I mean, it's a mess. So.
Okay, Diane, help me out here. I'm going to make a recommendation. When I was doing volunteer work at the Alzheimer's office, we would facilitate meetings with families. And sometimes this is a good tool because you have a third party who has no skin in the game, who can listen to family members and repeat what family members are saying and tell this family, this is what's happening, this is what you're saying, this is what you're saying, you need to be somewhere in the middle. And oftentimes the family is more receptive to a third party than they are to the nurse with 40 years of experience. Okay, well, what I'm saying is, the nurse with 40 years experience says something, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Somebody from the Alzheimer's Association says the same thing, and all of a sudden, they have credibility. Because again, they have no skin in the game. And the Alzheimer's Association, this is one of the services that the Alzheimer's Association will provide, facilitate a meeting with family members to try to get the family members to the same page in terms of caregiving. And I'm pretty sure that they can do a meeting in person and on Zoom at the same time, so that you can get everybody in the meeting together. And I recommend that type of facilitation because when you have a third party person facilitating that type of meetings, you don't have hurt feelings. No.
What is the title of the YouTube video?
The question was, what is the title of the YouTube video?
3 minutes.
I will have to look. I don't have that on the top of my memory, but if anybody would like that, I can send that to you, or maybe I don't know if we're sending anything out afterwards. Does anyone know? We can include that. But I'll get with you, and I have it on my phone, but I'll even send it to you. I'll send you the link.
Yeah, we all want it.
Once we have that, we'll make sure we pass it along later on this afternoon. How does that sound?
Yeah.
Okay. We have another question over here.
I can relate to both of you because I took care of my husband for 5 years with dementia and Alzheimer's. At first, I didn't, we were in denial. My family and I were in denial that he was developing Alzheimer's. But then he would tell me, Mary, I'm getting sick in my mind. I don't know what's wrong with me. I really don't. And the thing that helped me cope with his sickness was that both of us we worked for the same hospital in psychiatric. So when he really started getting sick, I could relate to some of his sickness. I didn't know what he was thinking, but when he started acting out, he was never aggressive. It's just that he would just start crying and crying and crying, and he would tell me that he had a big black cloud in his mind, and that he didn't know what he was doing, but he was doing things that he was not supposed to be doing. But like I say, you have to have a lot of patience. You have to show them love, not get aggressive with them. If they start getting aggressive with you, telling things that they never said to you before, just be patient, love them, take care of them, and because you never know, when they're gonna be gone. And he would always tell me also, if anything happened to him, for me to keep on with my life the way that we used to be doing, because we used to go dancing, gambling, traveling, and all that. So when he really started going down, it really hurt me. But also, what really helped me was my family, my friends, my children. They would come in and they would babysit him on weekends, so my daughters and I could go shopping or have lunch or whatever, and friends also. So that was a great, great help. And like I say, to anybody that has never gone through something like this with a loved one, when it comes that time, show them a lot of compassion. Treat them with respect and dignity. That's the first thing. And always be patient with them. Be patient. If they get aggressive, argumentative, don't answer. Just, calm down or walk away, and things will be okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. I just want to say that what we have to remember is that our loved ones at that stage are in a different world. They're not in our world any longer. And there's no arguing that's going to bring them into our world. So we just have to let it go and validate and redirect. Whatever they're saying, yes, try to agree with them, but just redirect and they'll move on, hopefully. Usually they do. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Well, I want to say thank you so much to Carol